Hello there, and welcome to this week's adventure. It's been a couple of weeks since I last made a video. I did try in the last couple of weeks, in the last couple of Friday adventures, to make a video, but unfortunately the weather was not conducive. It was a bit windy, a bit rainy, and the footage was not usable. It's kind of windy today as well actually, so I'm not sure how this is going to turn out. But if you're watching this, then it's turned out okay. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go and see Noth, which is that hill up behind us. Now Noth is the capital of the ancient Pictish Kingdom, of which I've spoken quite a lot about in these vlogs. In these vlogs over the past months, I have occasionally discovered a Pictish symbol stone, a carving, something of that nature, and I've spoken a bit about the Picts. But if you weren't there, if you didn't hear about the Picts, you don't know who the Picts are. Essentially, the Picts were the tribal people who lived in this part of Scotland before it became a unified nation. So before Scotland was a unified nation, it was kind of divided up into these tribal regions, and the tribes who lived in this part of Scotland were known as the Picts. Actually, we don't know what they call themselves. The Romans called them the Picts. They call them the Picti, meaning the painted ones, because they used to paint their faces before going into battle. So we don't know what they call themselves, and they're quite a mysterious people. We do know that they were eventually absorbed into the nation of Scotland, but they left behind all of these mysterious carvings on stones, and they also wrote in a language called Ogham, which was chosen because it was easy to carve into stone. And they left all of these carvings and Ogham scripts all over the landscape, and I've shown some of them in these vlogs, but we don't know how to translate them. We don't know what Ogham means, we don't know what the symbols mean and what the stones were for, and people have taken guesses at what they might have been for, but nobody's quite sure. So they're quite a mysterious people. But what we do know is the Picts were the ones who repelled the Roman Empire from Scotland. So the Roman Empire obviously had conquered most of Europe. They'd conquered what is now England as well. They'd pushed up into Scotland, and they did have a pitched battle against the Picts, and they did defeat the Picts in a pitched battle. But the difference between the Picts and everyone else was the Picts did not accept that they'd been defeated, and they waged guerrilla warfare against the Romans. So they'd kind of attack their camps at night, and they'd kill them while they were sleeping in their beds, and they would set their stuff on fire and burn their crops, and they would just make a nuisance of themselves basically. And they used the topography of the Highlands to their advantage. They knew all of the nooks and crannies around this area in a way that the Romans did not. So they're able to just rush in and kill them while they're sleeping, and then melt into the Highland countryside. And after doing this for some time, the Romans thought, you know what, this is more trouble than what it's worth. Let's just let them have it, and let's retreat back south again to the more civilized south. So they retreated back to England. They built this massive wall across the centre of the country called Hadrian's Wall, because it was the Emperor Hadrian who commissioned it. And they basically said, let those northern savages have that bit of land up there, and we'll just stay in the south. And so that's what happened. So they were kind of a warring people, but they were also a creative people, because they were able to repel the Roman Empire, the mighty Roman Empire, but they also left all of these carvings and symbols and stones, and they're shrouded in a bit of mystery. So that's basically the background to the Picts. And what we're going to go and see today is that hill up there, which is called Noth, and that is the ancient capital of the Pictish Kingdom. So that's where the king would have ruled from. That would have been the Edinburgh Castle of the day, essentially. The place that they would have, all the people in this area would have looked up to that castle, up to that fort, which was built around 3 AD. Around 4,000 people lived up there at its height, making it the most significant post-Roman settlement in all of Europe. It was a massive settlement, lots of people milling about. And all of the people down here in this part would have looked up and seen that fort in the hill. They would have looked to that fort for protection, and they would have known that that's where the king was, up in that horizon. So let's head up there and let's take a look at Noth. And this is the capital of the Pictish Kingdom. That isn't official, but I'm pretty sure it was. This had about 4,000 people living up here at one point, and that is official. And they found all kinds of things up here, like glass from France and Italian wine bottles. And they reckon this was the most significant post-Roman settlement in all of Europe. That's how big it was at one point. So this is where the king would have lived. This kind of would have been the Edinburgh Castle of its time. A big fort up on the hill that everybody would have looked up to for protection and for guidance. This is where the king would have been, the king of the Picts. And you can see why he chose this particular location, because it's not that strenuous to get up here. But once you are up here, you can see for miles and miles around. So you could see any advancing armies, any enemies approaching from a long distance away. It was built around 3 AD, and was used into about 8 AD, I think, so quite a while. It had a good run, but unfortunately, as you can see now, because it's so old, it's begun to collapse and it's turned to rubble, and it's now falling down the side of the hill, which makes it look a bit like a volcano, I think, from the sky. But hopefully, I'll put the drone up and you can get some drone shots. You can see just what a commanding view of the area it would have had. I've done a lot of exploration around this area, and I've shown on the vlog lots of Pictish stones, lots of their carvings. They all tended to have been around this area. All those Pictish stones that I've shown in previous vlogs. And I imagine out there somewhere still, there are lots of other Pictish stones and carvings that are as yet undiscovered. I imagine there's a lot more remains out there. This thing at the far side is interesting to me because it looks like it was put there a lot more recently, but I can't think why. It looks like maybe there was something here at one point. There's also some metal over here. There's some metal just here, and then also this bit, which is kind of curious. If anybody knows, hey Ali, hey, watch you don't fall off there. If anybody knows why there would be these metal things in the ground and why there would be a platform which looks like it's kind of mid 20th century, then let me know in the comments, because I'm not sure why that would be. But anyway, I think we're going to head back down the hill now. Now we've taken in the views, which are lovely. And it's not as windy once you get into the hollow of the fort. It's a bit sheltered. I don't want to go yet, I just want to take this in. I just want to stand here and enjoy this. And kind of ignore the windmills over there. I like to imagine, but I don't know for sure, but I like to imagine that there would have been a fort on top of that peak there. There would have been a fort on top of that peak there. On top of Benahee, which is around here somewhere. Maybe a fort on top of that hill there. And they would have communicated with one another. I mean, don't take this as the truth, but this is kind of how I imagine it went down. That they would have been able to signal to one another, because they would have had lookout points and forts across the entire area, and there would have been a network. I'm sure they said something on one of the, remember I went to, I think it was a stone circle, and they said something like, I think it was Tom the Very Stone Circle, it might have been the last vlog I did actually, where they said that they would have been in sight of one another, and there would have been lots of them across the landscape. And they would have maybe communicated with one another because they were on these hill points, and that's kind of how I imagine things would have went down here. But again, I could be completely making this up, and that could all be completely untrue. But it makes sense though, it makes sense to me that that's what they would have done to sort of control the area. But I'm sure that this was the centre, and this was where the king himself lived, because it's the most significant one by far. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed that little look at Tapo Noth. We're going to go down into the village of Rhynie now, where they've managed to gather some of the Pictish stones from around this area, just a few of them. So we're going to go down there, and we'll see some Pictish stones, we'll see some of the artwork of the Picts. There's Rhynie down there, so let's head back down. Okay, here we are in the village of Rhynie, and in the old kirkyard they have gathered a collection of Pictish stones for people just to come and have a look at. So let's have a look at the sign first to just get a bit of background information. It says that Rhynie can lay claim to a particularly high concentration of carved Pictish stones because of Noth. We're in the shadow of Noth, the great fort, with perhaps the best known being the Rhynie manstone, which is now on display in Woodhill House in Aberdeen, which is the council building, and the cross stane, which I've never actually seen before, so we might go and have a look at that. I think it's in the middle of a field. It says, which stands on the shoulder of the hill on the southern edge of the village. Let's go and find that after this, maybe. I won't read all of that, but we can have a look at the symbols themselves. Again, nobody really knows what any of this means. It looks like a geometric shape there, some kind of moon maybe. And I don't know what that is. That could be maybe a mirror. That one is extremely faded. That could be a fish up there maybe. And this one, it looks a bit like a horse's head, this one. And then, I'm not sure what any of this is. They're quite faded, so it's quite difficult to make out what they are, but let's see what it says. It says, as one of the heartlands of the Pictish community, Aberdeenshire is home to a large number of the stones. Around 20% of all Pictish stones have been discovered in Aberdeenshire. The ones so far, as I said up there, I guess there's a lot more still to be found around this area. It says that the Pictish stones have geometric shapes and patterns. They have animals, real and mythical, human figures, objects, and Christian motifs. Some earlier Pictish stones are also incised with a script known as Ogham, which is also something I talked about up there, which comprises a pattern of short linear strokes crossing a vertical line and is said to have its origins in the 4th century AD. The exact purpose of Pictish stones and the meaning of the symbols which adorn them is not clearly understood and continues to be the subject of much research and debate. These same symbols are also present on cave walls and are repeated on decorative metal and bonework. So these same symbols which you see here are kind of repeated all over the place. A mirror and comb is quite a repeating one, which is why I think that that might be a mirror and that object as well. So there we go. That's just a little look at some of the carvings that I was talking about up there in Noth. And like I say, as I've said a few times, I reckon out there you're probably going to find a lot more Pictish stones one day. I've just had a look on Google Maps and I think I've found a potential entry point to go and see the cross stane. So that's what we're going to try and do. In fact, I think I see it. I was worried there might be sheep in it or crops in it, but I think it might be accessible. It's just over here. See on top of that hill? Around there you should see a little lump. I think that's the top of the cross stane. Let's go and see if we can get in this field. Okay, it looks like it's not going to be possible with the dogs because there's a main road up there. We were heading up in this direction. The cross stane's there. I hoped it might loop around and we might get to it. But there's a main road up there and then the cross stane's there and there are some sheep a bit further down here. So we can't go into the field with the dogs, unfortunately. But it's a pity. I had hoped that they would make a little pathway through the field. But yeah, we might have to leave that for today, unfortunately, because there are sheep there, which Ollie and Raf are examining very closely. We've found another path, so we're just going to walk down here and see where it leads. Ollie and Rafa were quite keen to come down here. I think there's maybe a river down here. We're just exploring, just taking our time. What is that? What kind of fruit's that? Oh, there's a bridge. I like this. Some water. I had no idea this was here. This is fun. Oh. This probably leads into the village again. Oh, looks like it just leads to a dead end. All of these paths just lead to dead ends. I don't understand. There's Noth up there. That's where we just were. Okay, let's just head back to the car now because we've hit a couple of dead ends there. I thought that was going to be a lovely walk into the village or maybe around the village. But it's hit a dead end on that side and then there's a dead end up on that side next to the cross stane, unfortunately. We might just stop at one more place on the way back. The pups are not keen to get back in the car. They're negotiating with me right now. Like, what are you going to offer us if we get back into that car right now? What about swimming? If you get in the car, we'll go to a swimming. No? What about another hill? Or a forest? Do you want to go to a forest? Come on, get in the car. Come on. Come on, get in the car. Let's go to a swimming. Yeah. Does that sound good? Is that a deal? Is that a good deal if we go to a swimming? Okay. Get in the car. Okay, I finally managed to reach a deal with them. We're going to go to a swimming. They drive a hard bargain, these pups. Okay, as negotiated by the pups, we are at Houghton Country Park, which is just a big country park. There's places to have picnics, there's some woodland, there's a caravan park over here, but the main thing that it's got a river. And since that was the deal, you can't go back in a deal, especially not with these pups. We're gonna go and let them have one last swim before we go home. So it's not too far away. In this area of the country park, they've just let it grow wild, I guess to encourage insects and bees and things like that. But you know what I think they should do here? I think they should plant wildflowers all over this place, so that when the spring comes, or is it the summer when they flower, this just all turns to multicolour. That would be so cool. Just get a helicopter and a massive bag of wild seed underneath it and then just drop it on this field. And then in the springtime, it would just be awash with colour. And the insects would still absolutely love it. I think that would be such a great plan. Okay, this is the river. Here's the swimming, as promised. Rafa's right in there for a wee paddle. There we go. My duty has been done. Is this fun? Bella does not enjoy such things. Oh, Bella's here today, by the way. I forgot to say. Looking after Bella for a day, so she gets to come on this adventure. I say gets to, she doesn't really want to come on this adventure. She just wants to go home. She's not a fan of this kind of thing. I said gets to as though she'd be happy about it. She's coming on this adventure whether she wants to or not. It's nearly over, Bella. This is the last stop. Yeah! You see that hill up there? I've got beasties all over my fingers. See that hill up there? That is Benahee, and that's got a hill fort on it as well. Which is, I think, a little bit younger, but roughly the same age. We're going to go up Benahee one day, but I don't know when. But that's also a good walk. That's one of the more famous walks in Aberdeenshire.